Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, this is our second session in Fiqh al-Mu'amalat. For those of you that have the book, you can see it's very thick. So we said last week we'll try to run through it, get the information that we need. What's going to happen today is we'll run into types of transactions that don't really occur in our time. Whenever we do that in this book, we'll just briefly go over them. If you have a lot of questions on buying and selling, try to save it to the end so we can get through the book in a timely manner, inshallah. So last week we talked about the types of transactions, and then we also talked about riba. Today we're also going to talk about some rulings that do with transactions without really getting into like actual transactions. Maybe we'll have time at the end to get into a type of transaction. But first what he does is he just wants you to understand what kind of transactions you are allowed to take in. So for those of you that were here last week, how many types did we say? How many types of transactions? Three. First one is what? What kind of transaction is the first type? Bay'u aynin. Right? One that is like you can see it. Like you can see it, you give the money, you buy it. Right? So that is one type. Then the other one is?
That's just described to you, don't see it.
Described and you don't see it. So it's described. And it's described in a, like, as it should be. Like I tell you, this book has 20 pages. It's this color. These are the contents that it should be in. You don't see it, but then we agree to sell it. What's the third type?
It's not described, nor seen.
It's not described, nor is it specific. So if I tell you, I sell you my shoes, and you say, I accept. This is a transaction that does not haram. It's a haram transaction because you don't have multiple shoes. Which one am I talking about? What's the price for it? You don't know it. So those are the three types of transactions. And then we said there are two things that it's haram for you to buy. Two types of things. One is what? Things that are najis, right? Things that in themselves are najis. And we said, what was one of those things?
Alcohol, pork.
Huh?
Pork.
Pork. So pork, dogs, right? And then any other type of najasat. From there you get khamr, alcohol. Okay. Then we said, what's the other thing that you cannot sell? Type of thing. Something that there is no manfa'. There's no benefit inside of it. And when we say no benefit, what example did we give? What's an example of something that's not beneficial and you cannot buy? I said it's always the same example.
You said musical instruments.
There we go, musical instruments. Musical instruments. So when we say la manfa'ata fihi, things that the Sharia does not put value to, it does not see benefit in, and the Shafi'iyya would always go to the musical instruments and say these are the types of buying that you are not allowed things to buy. Then when we talked about riba, we said riba is only in three types of things. Gold and silver and food. Gold, silver, and food. For example, if I sold you one car for two cars, is that riba?
Yes.
It's not riba.
It's not. It's the same. It's the same car. I guess.
It's the Camry for two Camrys, huh?
Yeah, that's riba.
Uh-huh.
It's the same exact car. No.
No. Only gold and silver, and the things that take the place of gold and silver, right?
This is how the hawala works, right? Like you don't explicitly transact in terms of money, you transact in terms of goods, right? So again, you're playing with words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like don't transact money for money. You say, this car, I know roughly $10,000. I'm going to give you two cars back.
Yeah.
$20,000.
So, do you have a choice in that? Say yes to it or no?
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between that and I tell you, I'll give you 10 gold earrings for 2 gold necklaces? When you do it with gold and silver, when you do it with money, it has to be the same value. It has to be equal. But for example, if I said, I'll give you this thobe of mine for 4 of your thobes, even though the price yours might be more expensive than this is.
Wouldn't that go back to like what's the intention behind the transaction?
So even, okay, let's go one more step ahead. Can you trade gold for silver?
Yes.
Right? Do they have to be equal? Does the price have to be equal?
Yeah.
No. Gold and silver price don't have to be equal when you trade. As long as there's an agreement between, like, I will give you 40 grams of gold for 1,000 grams of silver. The value might not be the same. That is still allowed. Why is that allowed? Because these are two different things, and the Sharia lets you put a price on what you are selling and on what you are offering. But if you went silver for silver, me and you, let's trade, you have, again, silver earrings and have silver necklaces. That you don't have the choice of saying this is more than this one. For that, you would have to do it with the two conditions that we mentioned. It has to be together, like in one gathering, and the other, it also has to be the same weight. So even though you're giving me earrings, if it's 100 grams, my chains also have to be 100 grams. If mine is 105 and yours is 100, that is what riba is. Right? Even though it's like you have a different kind of silver in terms of it's already made into jewelry and so on. And then when it comes to food, we said you can't sell same food for another. Right? You can't sell same for same, like dates for dates, except again if you do it at the gathering and it is the same weight. So if it's weights, you use the same weight. If it's numbered, you use numbers. The other thing that we said was you cannot use meat to buy an animal. And this is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, do not use meat to buy a sheep. Do not use meat to buy a sheep. So meat that's already been slaughtered, and they put that in what they call riba. And then we said, وَلَا يَجُوزُ بَيْعُ الْغَرَرِ, and there's no risky buying, not allowed. Who can give me an example of this one? Like a risky type of buying you would make, purchasing something.
Option.
No, you see, okay, think about it this way. About,
Covered up.
you go to a fish farm. There's very few fish. There's big water. And you say, I want that one. That's not allowed. That's not allowed. Because you don't know what that thing actually is once it's brought out. Right? You don't know what it is. And then there's also, like I told you guys what they used to do. They used to have a type of buying where I'm going to close my eyes. The first thing I touch, I'm going to buy it. So they would close. Whatever my hand touches is what I buy. And then, boom, grab it. That is risky.
So, like, when people go to auctions and they're buying, like, a box, for example, and no one knows what's inside that box, that's an example of, like, risky.
Is that the example we gave last week? Yes. Yeah. So those risky, like, I pay 25, I'm getting this box. The value could be 5. Could also be 500. Nope. Not allowed. طيب, with that we move on to where we are going to begin today. Today we'll go Bismillah.
فصل والمتبايعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا ولهما أن يشترط الخيار إلى 3 أيام وإذا وجد بالمبيع عيب فللمشتري رده ولا يجوز بيع الثمرة مطلقا إلا بعد بلوغ صلاحها.
So he says now the next chapter. والمتبايعان, the two people that are buying and selling. So the buyer and the seller. We said the words al-bay'u wa-shira'u are used interchangeably in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He says they are both bil-khiyari ma lam yatafarraqa. For as long as they do not leave the gathering, they have a choice. They have choice to accept, to reject. What this actually here, when we talk about al-khiyar, this is what they call al-khiyar. There are 3 types of khiyar that you have. You have one that is khiyarul majlis, or let me take a step back. You have khiyar, 2 of them are both for the buyer and the seller, and then one of them is exclusively for the buyer. So the seller and the buyer share 2 of them. One of them is that the gathering, like al-majlis ma lam yatafarraqa, and then the next one, it is conditioning. Okay, these 2 are shared by both of them. The other one is exclusively for the buyer. So we'll get to it. So he says the first one, ما لم يتفرقا. As long as you are in my store, and we are talking about buy, like, again, this book that I have, I want to sell it to you. You want to buy this book. You remain, like, you've given me the money for it. I've given you the book. But you remain in my store. Or you remain in the gathering, the majlis that we are in. At any time, I can tell you, actually, I want it back. And at any time, you can tell me, I want to give it back, give me my money. مَا لَمْ يَتَفَرَّقَا. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ, the words of the Prophet ﷺ, he says, الْبَيِّعَانِ فِي الْخِيَاطِ, that both of them have the option. And this is in that gathering that we are in. So at any time, you can decide, I actually don't want it, give me my money. And the time, it does not end. If it's 3 hours later, and you're still in, let's say, bookstore now, in my bookstore, I'm selling you this book, you can come and say, here, I don't want it, give me my money. And in the Sharia, I have to give it back to you. I have to give it back to you. And generally, the kind of buying and selling we do today, most of the time they allow you to do this. Most of the time, if you're in the store, whether you've left or not, you can still go and return it. What they don't do though is, generally what we do on a regular basis, they don't tell you give our stuff back. So they've forfeited that right of, like if you go to Safeway and you bought grapes, if you stayed in the store 4 hours later, technically the store, like Sharia-wise, the store can come to you and say, give back our grapes. They have forfeited this right? You don't really see that, but you still have the right. So that is the first one. Then the other one, it is the choice of to make shurut, to make conditions. And this condition, ila thalathati ayyam, it is the condition of I can return it or I can take it back for up to 3 days. So again, I sold you this book. I can come to you 2 days from today and say, hey, give me the book back. But in order for this to be acceptable, we have to stipulate it in the buying and transaction. If you forfeit it, you don't have, as the buyer, you wouldn't have the right, or as the seller, you wouldn't have the right to come to me if we did not say that, hey, both of us have the option. You can't come to me and say, give me back my book that I sold to you already. I can't tell you give it back. But if we agree to it, if we agree to the condition of 3 days, that both of us have the option, then what ends up happening, for 3 days, we're able to get it. What happens if we go to 4 days? Nope.
It's whatever the two parties decide what they want.
Nope. This is only 3 days is what you can stipulate as the buyer and the seller. You can't say, like, you can't come and say, let's agree for a week, for 7 days. You know how they give you your 7-day free trials? All right, so I can do whatever, and then I can cancel without paying. We don't go up to 7 days. We go up to 3 days. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, you have the option for 3 days only. And the option here is for both the buyer and the seller. The buyer and the seller. This is where the rights in terms of choice, this is where the rights of the seller end. And then there's one just for the buyer, the one that is buying. He says, وَإِذَا وُجِدَ بِالْمُبِيعِ عَيْبٌ, that if you actually bought the book, you go home and you find that 3 of these pages no longer have writing. Like I sold you a book that was not, it wasn't as I told you or as you thought when you were buying it. If you can buy it, فَلِلْمُشْتَرِ رَدُّ. Then as the buyer, you can come to me, and this is past 3 days, past 5 days, let's say you buy this book and you don't open it for 3 months. Then when you finally come to it and open it 3 months from now and you see, whoa, this is not what it was, you can come to me and say, hey, give me my money back. This is the book that you sold me. This is the book that you sold me. Today, whenever we go shopping, generally most stores, they give you 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, 15 days. And this is whether you, like, if you, technically it's supposed to be only if it's not as they told you it was, that you come back. But we use it just, I don't like it, I'm going to return it back. All right, khalas, they haven't stipulated all of these things. And that is something we should be careful with. All right. When, like, they even put conditions for when you find the aib, it has 3 conditions for you to actually return it. The first one is obviously it cannot be your fault that there's an aib, that there is a fault with the product that you have bought. Right? So if you bought, let's say you bought a car and then you get into an accident, then you can't say, oh, car is faulty, take it back. So that's the first condition. The second condition that they place on it is that it has to be an aib that actually reduces the value of what you have purchased. right? So if I sold you this book, right? If I sold it to you, and let's say that sometimes this happens to me, that these 2 pages are stuck together at the corner, right? They're stuck together at the corner, and then I have to go in like this and rip it open. And now, like some part of when I was cutting it, the book is a little bit ripped. That doesn't really reduce the value of the book to the point where I can say, here, take it back. So it has to, like let's say you bought a cow, and the cow has like a little cut that does not reduce the value of it, then you don't have the right to come back and return it. The other thing, the last condition of it, is that as soon as you notice the aib, as soon as you notice the imperfection, you have to go and return it. So you have to do it right away. You can't buy something, see the book doesn't have 3 pages, look through it, then wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then say, oh, now I can actually go and return it. There has to be, as soon as the aib is here, I have to either tell them, hey, the book that you sent me, or the book that you sold me, or the cow that you sold me, the car that you gave me, it has this option, or it has these problems, and I need you to take it back, and I need you to give me my money. Generally, these choices today, when we engage in buying and selling, most of these are there. Most of these are there. The sellers that sell us things have sacrificed some of their rights. They've taken away some of their rights, and they've left the other rights open for us. Any questions on this?
Can you be more specific about the 3 days? So that's what Pastor Hassan said. Every 3 days you have both as a seller and a buyer to return the product, right?
Yeah.
And so for somebody who's coming out with, let's say, 90-day return policy or 1 year return policy, that is not okay?
So the 90-day policy, the 60-day policy, out of these 3, which one do you guys think it falls into? The third one. It falls into the third one. If we were to actually go and read like the actual agreement that they're giving us, the point is, if you are not satisfied with it, and dissatisfaction is due to the product does not work as it was intended to work, or it does not do for you what it was supposed to do, then in that case, you could return it for 90 days. But what actually happened to us is we've taken it to just mean, okay, worst example is what people would do, for example, to Costco. How long is the return Costco? Forever. I think it's 5 years, actually. Even after 5 years. Okay.
I think somebody returned like a 10-year-old couch.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. Okay, look. Now.
They know like explicitly that I'm not happy. You go and return it. You're not telling them why you're returning it. They don't ask you.
They don't.
So that's not halal, right?
So that is the option. So I'm not saying whether it's halal or haram. I'm saying what category does it fall into?
3.
It falls into the third category. Because to them, it is an aib for you not to like this thing. Right? For you to not be satisfied with it, they're telling you all of our products you're going to be satisfied. So the aib could not, like you buy a carpet and it might not have, like there's no stains. There's nothing wrong with it when they sold it to you, but they gave you that, hey, you will like this carpet. If not, bring it back wherever. And we don't care whatever condition it's in. Right? And people would come, like the 10-year-old couch, 5-year things. I wait in line to get my membership card sometimes when I don't have it. I see people returning food that they've eaten majority of it. And they're like, I didn't like this, here you go. Which is crazy. The thing is gone, but that's what they have. So that falls into the 3. The second type of, this is like what you need to focus on is the buyer having that option. The buyer having those 3 days to be able to say, hey, I actually don't want to sell it to you. I want it back. I want you to give it back to me. So imagine we sell, when these things are being written, they're not really engaging in the types of transactions that we're engaging in. If I'm selling you a cow and you bought this cow for me, I need to have those 3 days to see if, actually, I need that cow back. What if something I need to get that cow back so I can, use this milk or use this food, use like these different things from it, right? So that is more for us who would be focusing on the buyer. What we see today with the receipts and, you can return it with these is for the third kind. The third kind, yes.
So it's not haram to have, as a Muslim, to have, let's say, I'm the seller, I can say 90-day policy, 120-day policy.
Yeah.
To go beyond 3 days, right?
Yeah, to go beyond 3 days.
Minimum is.
But you don't have a right to take it back. As a seller, you don't have the right. That is what you don't have.
Yeah.
right? But the aib, it's I'm returning it because I'm not satisfied with this thing. And you said if I'm not satisfied, I can return it. Aib. Any other questions here? Yes.
I feel like the intention of why I'm returning it. So a lot of people are explicitly, I know friends are giving passport return policy, right? Doesn't feel right. There's nowhere intention so far has been mentioned, right? Like if your explicit intention is like, hey, I have this ski
I'm going to
trip,
buy a carpet one time for the next 40 years. Every 2 years, I'm coming and getting a new carpet. I didn't like it.
Yeah, like I'm going to a ski trip, I'm just buying ski gear and returning it after.
So, when it comes to fiqh, their focus is never on intentions. Their focus is always on, is this right in terms of the sharia? Is this allowed or it's not allowed? You coming up with the idea of, let me buy this clothes, I'm going to wear it to this thing and then return it back to them, as like your intention there, you are deceiving these people. But to the books of fiqh, like we said when we began fiqh al-ibadat, they don't care about intentions. They just want to tell you what you need to do for this transaction to be valid or for this transaction to be invalid. That's all they care about. When you go read into, like let's say we'll go into, when we go over books of hadith and you go to chapters that talk about buying and selling, obviously there they'll talk about, okay, this is actually how, like other things that don't deal with the actual buying and selling, but the intentions behind it and so on, they're going to be placed there. Because the purpose of those is you don't want to treat people this way, right? You don't want them, like I am cheating these people out of their money. Is this something I'm going to come and stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it? Right? You don't want to deal with any of those things. But here, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find that. So that's why it's not there. They want to just, you know it and you don't know it. That's it. Is it valid or is it not valid? Bismillah. Next part.
ولا يجوز بيع الثمرة مطلقا إلا بعد بدو صلاحها.
Okay, Bismillah. He says you cannot buy any thamar. What is thamar? What is thamar? Fruits. Any fruits. And fruits will also here include vegetation. You cannot buy it except after it begins to ripen. You can see the signs of it becoming ripe. So meaning, fruits, example, let's go with dates. Dates is what they always use. Dates, last week I told you guys, what condition does it start out in? Wet or hot or dry? It starts wet. When it goes dry, does it get smaller or bigger? It gets smaller, right? You cannot look at fruits like that, right? And generally fruits, they begin small and then get bigger and then they'll begin to do their shrinking. You cannot look at these types of fruits and say, I want to buy it before it begins to ripen, before the colors actually begin to change, because you don't know what's going to happen to it. If this fruit is growing, you don't know if it's actually going to be like a fruit or if it's going to be destroyed, right? You don't know that. So because of that, until it begins to actually show signs of it's becoming ripe, that's when you're able to buy it, right? And when it comes this idea of buying things before they're ready, when it comes to food like fruits, vegetation, there is no khilaf that it is haram for you to buy it because of the very many texts of the Prophet ﷺ, from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that tell us you cannot buy fruits until they ripen. You cannot buy vegetation until they ripen, until they're actually ready. But then when you go to other things, for example, let's say that you go to an animal, right? You go to an animal. If you want a cow, can you buy like the smaller version of it, the baby version of it? Yes, because generally what we know with it is one, you get the value right away for it, right? You get the value right away for it, and then it will begin to actually grow, right? But with fruits, you do not have there's no safety for you, right? And we said one of the things that the Sharia emphasizes when it comes to buying and selling, it is the protection of the person's money that's buying and the protection of the wealth of the person that is selling. And buying fruits in that type of way puts the wealth of the one buying in danger. Any questions on this? Actually, one second before we do that. Is this something that we do today?
We do.
We do it? Buy fruits before they're ready?
Yeah. Like a banana.
Huh?
Like a banana. Yeah,
the bananas like are all green.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, my dad likes to buy the bananas when they're green. So is that okay?
When they're green.
Yeah.
So this is okay. Do you guys eat green bananas or do you wait until they're yellow? Okay, I eat a lot of bananas. Actually, in my household, we eat a lot of bananas. Me and my 2 sons, my wife would buy like the bunches. Maybe like eight on one, 8 on one. Maybe they last like 1 day or 2 days. Because our sunnah has become in the house, we go in the kitchen, you can't grab nothing, I'm grabbing the banana. My son, banana. It's not banana. So, and generally, my wife just try to buy it green, and then she's like, let it go for a couple of days until it turns yellow. We don't wait. If you buy green one, we're eating green one. If you buy yellow one, you're buying yellow. But by the time that it's green, it's already ripe. Green banana, unless it's extra, not you can tell when bananas are not ripe, and you can even tell when you're buying it. But the ones you buy at the store, and that's why as soon as you put it in your house, 1 day, 2 days later, it already has turned the yellow it is, right? It's not like you wait 2 weeks for it to be, to actually turn. And at the same time, when they are picking it, do you think they're picking these bananas they're bringing to you are unripe bananas? No, the fruit is already ready to be. For you to begin eating, right? For you to begin eating, and bananas. This was also one of the favorite fruits of Imam Malik, because you could have it whenever. You could have it in whatever season. It's not like it has the protection, but with the cover from different flies or different animals going to it, and then khalas, anytime it's ready for you to open and you eat it. So unless it is like unripe bananas, the ones you find generally at the store are already ripe.
But as a seller, right, because of the cold chain processing, you are actually technically buying unripe bananas, right?
As a seller?
And as a seller, right? So like when Costco is buying it, or if I have my own store, I would prefer to buy unripe one and then ripen it. And this is what we see throughout back home, right? They are buying unripe version of some of these tropical fruits, and then to sell it outside of the season, right? You store them, and then you're having watermelon even in winter or whatever, right?
So is that because of production, or is it because of the ability that we have of eating things outside of their season? Is it still ripe when you buy it outside of the season? And I don't think they store it. I think they have ways to I told you guys this before, when I was living in Seattle, and you guys know the Seattle weather, we used to have palm trees that would be grown in a house that would produce dates, and they would take these dates and sell it to us, right? Farmers would do this. So is the watermelons that we're eating, I don't know if it's supposed to come winter or summer. When is watermelon season? Summer watermelon season, summer, okay. I don't know. It's always available. So when I go get a watermelon in the winter time, is this an unripe? It's not a ripe watermelon? It's ripe. If I get it in the summer, it's ripe. Most of whatever you buy, I don't think they're selling you, unless you go somewhere where they actually have bananas that are not ripe or fruits that are not ripe. What you find in the stores are all ripe. And I don't know.
Plant that has the fruit before it's ripe because you didn't pick it.
Yeah, no, this is the actual fruit itself, right? If somebody's looked at palm like a date palm tree, and it has no dates, or it has very few, and he says, "I want to buy this tree," he's not buying the fruit, because if he was buying the fruit next year, he has to give it back. But he's buying the actual tree. So if you buy a small, the orange trees they sell in the pot, so it grows a little bit, and then you go plant it, it's fine.
So does this also, this ruling is not for consumption, but also for trading, So for example, tomatoes are usually sold very green, extremely, the farmers would sell it very green, inedible.
Yes.
And then they would transport it across the country.
And then it gets ready.
And then they gas it, and so it gets ripe, and then they sell it. Right? So what's the ruling around that?
On that side of it, that's not allowed.
It's not allowed.
That's not allowed. on that side of the people that are buying to bring it to us. It's not allowed because they're buying it before it's ripened.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it comes to me when I go to Safeway and I see those that came from, let's say, oranges that came from Florida. They might have been, again, gone through the same process. When I am buying it, this thing is already ready for me to eat. But as the trade person, that is what you are falling into it, right? And really, this, like, in those times, this is how they used to buy fruits, right? You would go and you would see a farmer. They didn't have the process of making it ripe, so you
exactly, because they didn't have this.
So they would have to just look and say, "Hey, this is not ready. Let me buy this," right? And that's not allowed because you don't know what's going to happen to it, right? Now you could make the excuse and say, "We know what happens to, as the farmer when I'm selling these green tomatoes. I know that, like, as the buyer of the Safeway, as I'm buying it, I know I have the capabilities of making this thing ripe, and then maybe that removes it out of it's not ready." Right? Allah knows best. But as an individual, when you go to these stores, generally, you have things that are ready for consumption right away. Right? Every type of vegetation, if you are allowed to consume it right away. Bismillah.
ولا بيع ما فيه الربا بجنسه رطبا إلا اللبن. Okay, Bismillah. Last time we talked about riba, and we said what type of things it is. And riba that used to happen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the most, what was the idea of buying things that were wet, fruits that were wet, especially dates. Anything that is wet, and when we say wet, it doesn't mean it's not wet in the sense of when you touch it, it's always wet. But in the sense of in the process of growing, this is the stage that it is in. You cannot do that. You cannot perform riba with things bijinsi, like same thing one for another, similar, except for laban. For laban, what is laban? Milk. What is halib? Milk?
So it depends on who you ask.
Yeah. I'm Misriyin, that's why you guys are milk. We need some non-addition.
Leban, some people would say it's yogurt.
It's yogurt, yes. So here, leban, it means milk products. So milk and milk products. Okay? Aslan, that's here, this is like milk and then things that come from milk. Generally, things that come from milk will always be wet. And the reason why it's allowed, for example, like I have a cow. I milk this cow. I got a gallon. Atiq has a cow. He milked the cow. Okay, he milked the cow. He gets 2 bags. So 2 gallons, 1 gallon. And I tell him, hey, my animal grazes better than yours at a better place. Therefore, it produces better milk. Yours is thing, let me get 2 of yours for this 1 of mine. Is this riba? If it was anything else but milk, in that state, it would be riba. It would be riba. I can't come to you with dates, right, that are wet and tell you 1 gallon or 10 pieces of mine for 5 pieces of yours. But in milk, it is not riba. And in milk products, so like yogurt and things like that. The reason for it is milk, its perfect state is wet. That is when milk is the best. And because this is like the best, it's not going to get better. Right? It's impossible for it to get better. But if you actually keep it, what happens to milk? It gets worse. So because this is where the kamal of it is, this is where the perfection of it is in, I can come to you and now sell, like we can have this option and it will not fall into what is considered riba. Will not fall into what is considered riba, even though it looks just like riba. Even though it looks just like riba, it would be different because this is the kamal of it. Now let's say same exact example, but I take my milk and I add water. I add water to my milk. Same milk, but now because I've added water, can I sell it to him for that same deal that we had?
If he knows. Right?
Yeah, even if he knows, no, let's say he doesn't know. He doesn't know that I've added water to it. But I've added the water to it now and I come to him. Now this is riba. Why is it riba? Because I removed it from that perfect state that it was in. That perfect state that I was in, it has been removed. Now let's say he doesn't have a cow, but he has a bison. Or let's say he has a camel. You guys drink camel milk here? You ever had camel milk in your life? Okay. You have? That's the best kind of milk to drink. That's the best kind. Okay? Why give me that look? Why give me that look?
It's very
Okay. Have you had camel meat? You've had camel meat? Habibi.
Cow meat is the best one.
For you, I think it is wajib for it to be the best one.
Half of my iman.
Half of your iman is eating cow meat. For our Desi brothers, especially those from India, yes. Your condition, la ilaha illallah, to be accepted, you have to eat cow, huh?
Yes.
On a regular basis.
On a regular.
put their god down. La ilaha illallah. Allah, ajib. Right? But we do eat camel meat. Camel meat is very good. It is the only type of meat that makes you wudu. Right? You have to make wudu again. This is, model ikhtilaf, there's different opinions on it. But yes, so let's say you had camel milk. Or I had camel milk, you had cow milk. And I had 1 gallon, you had 3 gallons. And you came and you said, hey, let's trade. Is this riba or no? What if I added water to my camel milk? Really? These are 2 different things now. So I wouldn't fall into it. By the way, you can get camel milk at Trader Joe's. So if you're interested in trying, you can also get it at Whole Foods.
Yeah. Actually,
It just came to my mind. I was like, oh, let me tell you together.
they say that the camel milk is good for like autism.
What?
I have no idea.
For what?
Autism.
Oh.
I have no idea. But camel milk from the camel, usually very good.
Is it a domestic camel or is it a camel?
For these, I think it's in these are domesticated camels. I think there's a very big farm in Arizona. Very big limit. Like when I was living in Seattle and I would go get camel milk, like when it just started coming to these stores, they were like, this comes from Arizona. There's a big farm there. Here you go. All right. So, but it is a little bit expensive. But it's good milk. It's good milk. And then also bison milk is also very good. Out of all the milks that I've had, especially with tea, that is the sweetest one. Why do I drink bison milk? We used to have a lot of Native Americans, and this is what they would do, and they would bring it and be like, hey, try this. And it looks like milk, right? Obviously. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, that's bison. They'd be like, wow, this is very sweet milk. So alhamdulillah, options. Any other questions here?
So I'm just confused about this same thing for the same thing. Sometimes it's halal, sometimes it's haram. Like, why is the car for the car, and but then the milk for the milk?
It's not. Okay.
I mean, it's the opposite. Like, why is the car for haram and then the milk for milk is halal? It seems it's confusing.
Okay. What does he say? Okay, this is actually the end of the fasl. Okay, well, let's do this. Riba, we said it's only in 3 things, right? 3 types of things: gold, silver, and food, and mat'umat. So things that you eat. Riba is only in these things. In any other thing, riba does not come into it. For us, the only one that we deal with, like if we were to stick to this, it's the food. Gold and silver, we no longer use it the way that they used to use it. And when we say gold and silver, the actual coins and the actual like made gold and silver. Our place, most of our transactions, we have something that took the place of that, money. Money, we understand that I can't give you $100 USD, US dollars, until you give me 105, because this is a new print, or this is like you are in like, we understand that's just riba. Why are you getting 105? Why am I getting 100? Right? This is not a fair exchange. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he, like the places they get these 3 things from, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that riba is gold for gold, selling gold for gold, selling silver for silver, and then different types of vegetations. So barley for barley, wheat for wheat, dates for dates. Now, when we come to these, and the Prophet ﷺ made a way that you avoid riba in these type of things. Okay, the way that you avoid riba. And the way that you avoid riba in gold for gold and silver for silver and fruit for fruit is that they have to be the same. Either we're going to measure our gold with the grams, so the weight of it, or we're going to measure our fruit with the numbers or the weight of it. Like barley and wheat, flour, grains, you can't do one like piece for piece. So 10 pounds for 10 pounds. That's the first condition. But let's say dates. Let's say the oranges that we have over there that you guys are welcome to try and get some, or try to have some. Let's say bananas. Those have to be not by weight. If you choose to be weight, you could do by weight. But it's easier for you to say 5 for 5. So that it has to be the same, right? It has to be, and the exchange has to take place at the same time. That would not fall into riba. So if we go to milk. Right?
So why is it by weight for gold and silver, but numbers for vegetation?
No, you get to choose. You get to choose how you do it. So if we do piece for piece, right? If we do piece for piece, obviously, like if it's earring for earring, 24 karat, then you would say, okay, let's do it. But the reason we're saying by the grams, by the weight, generally when you deal with gold, or every time you deal with gold, this is how it's done, right? When you go and buy it, you say, I want this many grams of this. And then even the earrings, the necklaces, the bracelets, they'll calculate it weighs 100 grams. This is how much each gram is. For bananas, for fruits, you can do weight. You can say instead of 5 bananas, 10 pounds of bananas for your 10 pounds of banana. But I'm just saying that you have both of these options, but they have to be the same. Either you're both using like weight, or you're using items.
Number of items.
Number of items, right? So using number of items to get it. So then the way you get out of them from being riba is that you take them and you do it in the same gathering. So if I tell you now 10 pounds of banana for your 10 pounds of banana, the Sharia doesn't make these two bananas different. You are trying to put like my banana gets this much more sunlight than your banana, than your banana trees. Your banana trees are facing this way, so the sunlight hitting. Mine are better than yours. So let me get more, let me give you 2 pounds for your 4 pounds. That would be considered riba. But banana is banana. 4 pounds of yours is equal to 4 pounds of mine. If we agree to that, even though now, like the reason I'm selling you my 4 pounds of banana, it's because I do believe that yours is better than mine. I do believe it's better. Yours gets more sunlight. Yours gets this. You have better people that take care of it. But in order for that to happen, it has to be in one gathering, and it has to be the same, like they have to be equal. Is that clear? That's clear. Now we go to same things, but of different kinds. So we'll go to fruits. Oranges for bananas. Because they are not the same thing, the Sharia lets the buyer and the seller determine how much it is, what the price of it is, or what the value of it is. If I tell Muhammad that my 10 pounds of oranges are worth 100 pounds of his bananas, he still have he can tell me, no, it's not worth, it's worth 50. But us engaging in these transactions, because they're not from the same place, would not enter into riba. It will not enter into riba, because riba is when it's for one. And this is a type of riba. This is not all riba. This is in buying, and this is in buying and selling. When we get to contracts and we get to things, it has a different kind of riba that is there, right? And when we get to loans, they have a different kind of riba. But this is in the buying and the selling. So now we go to the car. Or let's go back to the milk. The milk, because it can't get better. Like it cannot get, perfection of it is in that state that it is in. The Sharia excludes it from being riba, even though it looks just like riba, right? And why is that? Because the Prophet ﷺ allowed this to, like for this to take place, of where I can sell my milk for whatever price of milk you've set for yours, and I can also set the price for it. When I go to the car, same thing. These are different than when we talk about it. So my car, even though, like, if I went to the dealer, they're like, it's $5,000, right? Can I come to Daqiq and say, listen, you have those 2 cars there. I want to give you this car, knowing that mine is only 5 and yours could be more. You have set your value as that 2 of yours equals my car. And I've set it as 1 of mine equals yours. And if we do it, it's not riba. It's not riba. So that is the difference between like milk and other things when it comes to riba, and why like these chairs, the clothing that we have, and they don't fall into riba, because you as the buyer and the seller get to determine the price of it. Is that clear on riba? Alhamdulillah. Okay, it is 11 o'clock. So, actually, let's stop here. Next week we'll go into salam. This one will be a little bit interesting. This is where you talk about buying things without seeing them. Right? It is just a quick introduction for you. It is, when you tell somebody to build you a house, and you say, I want it this way, this way, this way, this way. What are the conditions for that type of transaction? What is allowed and what is not allowed from it? So that will be the first type of transaction that we'll get to. We haven't gone into any type of transaction yet, just rules surrounding transactions, but we'll get more specific. With that, inshallah, the class has concluded. Jazakumullah khairan. Any questions? Now you're free to ask.
Yeah. You had mentioned three things, right?
Yes.
The gathering, the majlis, condition.
What was the third condition? What's the third type of khiyar?
Defect.
Defect.
Oh, the idea.
The defect. So we said there are three types of khiyar. We'll say options. Two of them are both for the buyer and the seller. One is specifically for the buyer. The two that are for the buyer and the seller together are the majlis, the conditioning up to 3 days, and then the one that's specific is I can return it if I find Eid, if I find any issues with it. Bismillah. Any other questions? Let our brother take his notes. Yes. Any other question? Bismillah.
I don't remember this, but why is the camel meat in Mubtalat al-Wudu?
Okay. Why does camel meat break your wudu? So we don't have a reason, and we don't have because it's this kind of meat it breaks it. But we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he's being asked, if I eat goat meat, do I have to make wudu? The Prophet ﷺ said what? Finish it if you want. You want to. And then he says, if I eat camel meat, do I have to make wudu? The Prophet said, no. Yes, you have to make wudu. So because of that, the scholars that took that to mean it's from the nawaqid of wudu, that's the proof that they use. Those that come to it and say, oh, it does not break your wudu, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, anything that the fire touches does not break a person's wudu. Right? So camel, before you don't eat it raw, you cook it. So because the fire has touched it, that thing that would have taken you out of wudu is no longer there. The other side responds and says, no, this is a general statement, and the general statement was made specific by the camel meat of making wudu. Right? There's takhsis that was done, as we went over in our class on waraqat. Right? So, not a reason, but a proof for why it breaks. We don't know why it breaks wudu. We just know.
What's takhsis?
Takhsis is when you have a general statement, and then that general statement is made specific. So, you exclude things from it, for example. So they say the hadith that says whatever fire touches, you don't have to make wudu. They say this is a general statement. This is a general statement. But then when you come to that of the camel, this is a specific, because it's talking about something. So you have to apply both of these together. So you have the general statement and you say this is true for everything. But this one now comes under and says it's true for everything except this. Right? Just like, what's another example we gave in waraqat for those that came? See his room. You were there. Were you there? Oh, you missed it. Oh, Muhammad is there. What was there? Who else was there? Were you there? You were there. Nothing? Yeah, salamat.
I remember takhsis. That should be enough.
That should be khalas. Khalas. That's all we need, huh? No. How about I'll give you guys a hint. When it comes to kafara, you generally have fast for 2 months, right? Straight. Feed 60, and then what? Free a slave. In the Shafi'i madhab, there's is it any slave? Or is it a Muslim slave? Right? That was the takhsis that we mentioned, one of the examples that we gave. Right? Or, actually, go back to the recordings. I don't know if they're recordings. Go back to the recordings. Or go back to your notes. For those of you that were here, you had a booklet. Go back to the notes.
Can we say like when the Quran is recited, just listen, especially behind the Imam. But there are exceptions, like
Surah Al-Fatiha?
Can we give this as an example?
I don't think so. I don't think you can give that as an example. But I don't know. What's another example of takhsis?
Music is haram. But then the drums or the tabla is what's deaf?
The duff is taken out of it. That's
Is oud halal?
Oud? Like the
It's a string.
the string. Is that with the ayn or with the no string instrument is allowed. No string instrument. To us, even the drum is not allowed. To us, even the drum is not allowed. The duff for us, one, it has to have the opening, right? It's not the tambourine or it's not the drums. That it has to have an opening at the bottom, and it could only be played by women on Eid only. No other time. Right?
They play it during other times.
Yeah, they play it during other times. Yeah. Shafi'i, none of that.
Like the protest that we go to.
Even like with the Al-Eid, they do that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. No, so there's another exception they say for weddings. Again, no man can hear it. I forgot to mention. When we talk about buying things of no benefit, what's another example you'd find in the Shafi'i books? Let's say you buy a slave that sings. Not allowed. They used to like slaves that not allowed. Why? Because if you buy it for that, nope. That's how when it comes to music, whether it's the instruments or whether it's the actual like even people singing, ya Allah.
Very strict interpretations.
Yeah, very, very strict. Very strict. I don't want to say the scholar's name, but there is someone, obviously from the time of the Tabi'een, that they look at like as someone that Islam, Khurasan comes through him. There's people that are like scholars of hadith that weaken him because in his neighborhood they used to have music. And they used to live people that would, sing and they would play with the drums and these things. And they're like, because you live there and you let that happen, the way that we look at you, it's imagine what they would say about us. Kufr everywhere. Ya Allah. Wallah, may Allah forgive us. Allah forgive us, subhanAllah. And this really shows you, right? Like to them it was like, if you have knowledge, if you're someone that is of this level, your job is to change society. So if you can't change your neighborhood, it doesn't matter how far you go and you travel, what change are you going to bring? Your own neighbor is here singing and dancing and playing it. So it's different times that we live in. Question? Any other question? Okay, Jazakumullah khair.
So in that case, tabla is halal, but only if we look at it and then.
And then sometimes wedding, if men don't hear it. Or if it's different days, or if there's no men at all.
What do you mean different days? You can't never heard of that.
Okay, the way that we do like our weddings, and we think this is what's close. This is what we think is closest to the Sunnah. What we do is, in the morning, like in the morning after, generally, like if we were back home, let's say you'd get married on a Friday. Friday morning, they would do the nikah in the house. So you would either go to the family's house, that the girl that you marry, or her family would come. After they come, they do it in the morning. After Jum'ah, you would have, food, the olima for men, and then nighttime you'd have the gathering of the women. That's it. You know?
What do the men do? What do the men do at the night time?
At the night time, brother. Those that have work go to work. The guy's just waiting until his time is coming. Until she's done, that's what you do. Yeah. But what else is it? Yeah. That's the whole men, women together, that's crazy. Crazy. I mean, Allah make it easy. And I know you guys have so many conditions to get married and so many different parties that have to take place and all of that. Allah is just suffering for no reason. Like somebody has to delay marriage because of how expensive those things are, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What is happening? Just, man, go to the masjid, do the nikah, tell one of those companies that do catering, bring the food, Salaam alaikum. Allah, so I'm married, you all know we're finished. What else is there for it? I have to have this, the girls have to have a party before the party. The man has to have a party before the party.
Don't forget the after party.
The after, what is happening? And then what? The number one problem, why aren't people married? Look, why aren't people married? I don't have the money for it. You're like, oh, you can't provide? You can't pay for this? No, I need 50,000 for this. Allah is, generations are just being destroyed like this. You know,
They're married because they're picky, not because of the wedding.
I think a lot comes down to, obviously there's that, but it also comes down to, if someone that's 23, 24, 25 today went to his parents and said, I want to get married, like a boy, like a man, what's the first thing that the family is going to say? You have to pay for it. And when they say pay for it, it's not that after you move into the house that you have to pay for it. Like I understand, okay, you have to have money to get the house ready, but it's two of you. One bed, one couch, one chair, sit on the floor. You don't even need a dining table. Why do you need a dining table? How expensive is that? Then you go okay, you have to have a house. The house for two people, it has to accommodate 4 or 5 people. We don't know when family is going to come over. Don't come over. Simple. Why are you making this so difficult? Oh, it's hard. SubhanAllah. And then we have to do this, party that. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. No, it's hard. And I thought it was only an American problem. You know the craziest part? I don't think the Americans' weddings go crazy like ours. They don't because sometimes non-Muslims invite me.
They cost less.
Not only do they cost less, they don't even have the idea, you don't go to the wedding if you're not invited. So when I'm planning it and I say I'm doing it for 150 people, it's not like the Muslims, right? The Muslims, you plan for 150, 500 people are there. So it's what is it? You have to always, for them there's this many tables, there's this many chairs, everybody has where they sit, everybody has so they end we go beyond that. And they generally Ya Allah. Even in that we decided not to follow them. Huh? But it is not just a problem here. It's a problem everywhere. Yeah. It's a problem everywhere. We have too many things. And all of it just add to making marriage too difficult. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rectify our affairs. And I think majority of the people here are married, so they're why are you talking about marriage? When your kids grow up, right, don't make it too difficult on them. That's how you should look at it. For those that are single, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you guys righteous spouses. With that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.